I was once a man of science, a humble student of chemistry, physics, the sacred alchemical principles preserved by the Mechanicus and the Administratum. My task was not glorious. I was employed in the manufactoria of Phoebe, refining solvents, purifying ores, ensuring that the vast war machine of the Imperium remained supplied. I believed in stability, in laws, in the constancy of matter and energy, the equations that bind the cosmos. I thought the truth could be measured, weighed, and bottled. But the truth is not constant. Truth is a liar's smile, a mask that shifts with every question. And I know this now, because I have been chosen as an alchemist of the architect of fate, the Lord of change, the eternal liar and eternal truth teller. I have unbound myself from the chains of certainty, and in their place I have been granted infinity. It began, as so many falls do, with failure. The manufactoria was under quota. Our shipments of refined promethium lacked efficiency. The overseers raged. The commissars threatened. I worked without sleep, recalculating every formula, but the equations betrayed me. They led only to ash and collapse. In my desperation, I turned to old tomes, forbidden even in the archives of the Mechanicus, scraps of Imperial alchemy, myths of transmutation, whispers of substances that could bend reality itself. At first it was idle curiosity. I mixed mercury with ash, gold with quicklime, sulfur with blood. The results were strange. Not consistent, not repeatable, but strange. The mercury thickened into a jelly that pulsed like muscle. The ash sprouted veins of crystalline growth that hummed when struck. The sulfur hissed with voices that I swear called my name. I should have destroyed the results. Instead, I recorded them. I refined them. I began to dream of new combinations, equations that came unbidden in my sleep, whispered in a voice both foreign and intimate. One night, while the manufactoria lay silent, I tested a mixture of promethium residue with powdered bone. When I ignited it, the flame burned not orange nor blue, but a shifting spectrum of colors my eyes had never seen. They slid and twisted, each hue birthing another, each shimmer hinting at shapes within. And then the fire spoke. Not in words, not in language, but in thought. It opened inside my skull like a bloom of light. It showed me equations rewritten, metals shifting into flesh. It revealed not the world as it was, but the world as it could be. When I awoke, the flame was gone, but the voice remained. It whispered to me of reagents hidden in the manufactoria's waste, of organs that could be harvested from the corpses of the paupers who died daily, of symbols that could be carved into the flesh of volunteers or unwilling donors, that would alter their very essence. And I obeyed. My first true experiment was a beggar taken from the gutter. His body was wasted, his skin sallow, his blood thin, hardly ideal material. But the voice insisted that perfection could be wrought from even the basest clay. I prepared him with tinctures, mercury infused with bile, dust of powdered teeth, oil of fungus that glowed faintly in the dark. He writhed, he screamed, he begged, but when I cut the sigil into his chest, the reagents poured into the wound and fused. His bones cracked, his flesh bubbled, his eyes burst into flame. For a moment he died, but then he lived again. Different, radiant, wrong. His veins glowed with shifting light. His jaw distended into a maw that sang when he exhaled, each note a mathematical perfection of pitch. His arms divided into 3, then 5, then 2 again, as though reality itself could not decide his shape. I was awestruck. Here was proof. Here was possibility. Here was the death of law and the birth of freedom. The beggar did not last long. His body dissolved into a slurry of color and sound within an hour. But I kept samples. I studied the residue, and I knew then that I had crossed a threshold from which there was no return. I became bold. I moved from beggars to workers, from workers to overseers, from overseers to anyone my cult could seize. Yes, by then I had followers, men and women who had heard me speak of possibility, who longed to break free from the rigidity of the Imperium's chains. They called me master, though I told them I was but a servant of something greater. We turned the Manufactoria's sublevels into a laboratory. Vats bubbled with concoctions that glowed and whispered. Chains held victims whose bodies I remade with fire, acid, and symbols of power. Some screamed until their throats tore. Others sang with joy as their flesh reshaped itself into wings or claws. Some survived. Most did not. But all were beautiful, for even failure taught me new equations, new truths. One woman grew a second spine that curled from her back like a serpent, hissing words in a language none of us knew. A man dissolved into a puddle of quicksilver that reformed each dawn into a slightly different shape. Another sprouted 1,000 eyes across his chest, each weeping tears of molten glass. Each was a hymn to change. Each was a revelation. It was then that the voice revealed itself to me more fully. It was not flame alone, not thought alone, but the architect of fate himself, Tzeentch, the changer of ways. He demanded not worship, but creation, not prayer, but transformation. Every experiment was a hymn, every mutation a verse, every death a chorus. The laboratory became a temple, and I its priest. We alchemists of Tzeentch are not like the priests of Horn, who drown themselves in gore. We do not chant like the plague choir of Nurgle, nor writhe in excess, like the servitors of Slaanesh. No, we create, we unbind. We take what is, and make what is not. We prove that reality is clay, that truth is mutable, that nothing is constant except change. And in doing so, we are closer to godhood than any other. Inevitably, the Imperium noticed. The Arbites raided, the commissars purged, the priests condemned. But they were too late. My creations were already legion. When they stormed the Manufactoria, the vats burst, spilling tides of transmuted flesh that devoured the enforcers whole. Men became beasts mid-step, their armor fusing into their bones, their weapons grafting into their arms. Some screamed in terror, others laughed as they transformed. We did not fight a battle. We conducted a ritual. Every gunshot, every scream, every mutation was part of the equation, part of the formula. And as the Arbites burned, I saw their captain's skull elongate into a bird's beak before it split, birthing wings of blue fire. He rose shrieking into the rafters, and I knew then that Tzeentch himself had smiled upon me. I do not know what I am anymore. My body is not constant. My skin shifts with the seasons, sometimes scales, sometimes feathers, sometimes translucent jelly that reveals the rivers of fire flowing in my veins. My hands sprout new fingers daily, and each writes equations faster than the last. My eyes multiply, split, vanish, and return, and each sees a different spectrum of truth. But I am not afraid. Fear is for those who cling to what is. I am devoted to what may be. I am an alchemist of Tzeentch, and my purpose is not stability, but transformation. Each night, I record my formulas, though the symbols writhe on the parchment and change each time I glance away. Each day I experiment anew, though my creations now often live longer than I. Some whisper to me in voices that sound like my own. Some mock me, some adore me, all teach me. One day soon, I will dissolve entirely. Perhaps into light, perhaps into song, perhaps into equations that ripple through the warp itself. That will be my apotheosis. That will be my hymn. You who read this may recoil. You may brand me heretic, monster, madman. Perhaps you will send soldiers to burn what remains of my laboratory. Perhaps you will bury these words in the vaults of the Inquisition, never to be seen again. It does not matter. For every fire you light, 10 more sparks will ignite. For every alchemist you slay, 100 more will dream of possibilities beyond your chains. The Imperium clings to stability. But stability is a lie. Change is eternal. Transformation is inevitable. Tzeentch is truth. And I, once a humble scholar, am his servant, his priest, his alchemist. Come, take up the reagents. Mix mercury with ash, blood with flame, truth with light. Cut the sigil into your flesh, breathe the fumes of transformation, and see what you might become when you abandon what you are. For in the end, you are not a man. You are a possibility. And Tzeentch waits to make of you something new.